The Midwest supporting, bruiser loving, positivity spreading, world's most dangerous podcast. Join former pro wrestler and promoter Dave Dynasty as he supports and promotes Midwest pro wrestling. Keep on growing with the Midwest Express. This is the Dave Dynasty Show.
And welcome to the Dave Dynasty Show. This is your host, Dave Dynasty, coming at you, well, not live, is it, right? We're not live. No, coming at you recorded on delay, depending on when you listen to it. Yeah, that was a weak start, but I hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining us, whichever way you do. We are on all the podcasts every week. What is my deal? Every week, I go to say podcast platforms, and it comes out all mumbled and tripping. That's not that big of a tongue twister. Why am I having that much trouble with that? We're going to have to see now how this streak goes, right? I'm not editing that. I'm not cutting it out. We're just going to keep it going to see how many weeks Dave Dynasty trips over the phrase podcast platforms. I don't know. It's like I get rolling and the P's and the L's just all jumble up. So again, we are available on all of the podcast platforms, as well as SoundCloud, YouTube, always posts on Facebook. So whichever way you join us, thank you. Hopefully, if you're joining us for the first time, hopefully you're not making passing judgment on the first minute of this podcast and thinking, what a bumbling fool. Why am I wasting my time? It's going to get better. I guarantee you it's going to get better. This is a fantastic episode. We have a segment today, an official's decision with referee Manbun. Always great. Always giving you the scoop on where he's been and what shows he's working here in the Midwest. The best way to keep track of some of that action from the official's point of view. Always fun. If you've been to a show in the area, you've probably seen Manbun. You can't miss him. He's the guy in the stripes with the Manbun. I dare you to try to find another guy in stripes in a Manbun. You won't. It's the only one. Sean O'Brien is the only one that you will see. And, if you're out there and you see the guy in the stripes in the Manbun, hit him up because he has t-shirts now. That's right. There are official referee Manbun shirts. Why would you not want this? Why would you not want to see the silhouette of referee Manbun on your shirt? So hit him up, look him up on Facebook and, make arrangements to get one of those shirts or hit him up at a show. Like I said, he's all over the area. Just listen to the decision today. You'll see the promotions he works for, the areas he works for. But get one of those shirts. Hey, and while you're buying shirts, help out old Dave Dynasty, right? Because apparently he may have to get some hooked on phonics, to quit, mumbling over his words. So help out good old Dave, right? Contrary to what my old HPW gimmick was, I'm not the man of endless money. That's right. For those of you that remember me when I first broke into HPW, we're approaching almost 18 years ago. That's right. Dating myself there. But anyway, when I broke in as a manager, right, I did the money gimmick, right? I did, the guy that was all rich, all loaded, the spoiled guy. I was basically ripping off Jim Cornette. No one's going to say otherwise. I wear that like a badge of honor. If you're going to rip somebody off as a manager, who else, right? But anyway, so contrary to the gimmick, that I had nearly 18 years ago, I'm not the man of endless money. So help a brother out. Go to ProWrestlingTees.com, look up the Dave Dynasty Show and buy a shirt. You know you wanna. You can get a Dave Dynasty logo shirt. It's actually our older logo. We're getting ready in the near future to upload the new logo. We will probably phase out the old. So get it while you can with the Lucha mask. It's pretty cool. And then we also have the Dave and Ike pop figure shirts are up there. Once again, those are going to be phased out soon too. So if you're into pop figures, if you're into professional wrestling, and if you're from the Midwest, there you go. It's all in one shirt. Get one of those. And of course, the show that you're part of the movement and get the Midwest Express shirt. A very, very cool shirt. So go out to ProWrestlingTees.com, look up the Dave Dynasty Show, buy a shirt there, support a brother, help me out. We're the only podcast bringing you this much Midwest pro wrestling every week, free of charge. So help us as I'm, fighting through all the equipment issues I've had lately and everything else. Your contributions help tremendously with all those things. And not only can you go to ProWrestlingTees.com and buy a shirt to help out, you can also go to PayPal.me/The Dave Dynasty and make a donation to the show. Just anything, couple bucks here and there. We appreciate it. Again, it goes to keeping the show free, keeps the equipment running, replaces the equipment when we need to. And if you'd like to do that on a monthly basis, if you really, really dig what we're doing here and you say, hell yeah, sign me up every month, I want to help Dave out, then you can go to Patreon and look us up at the Dave Dynasty and make an ongoing monthly contribution. We appreciate it. At some point, for those monthly contributors, where we might start giving you and throwing you some exclusive audio. I would say outtakes, but hell, we just leave the outtakes in, right? Me fumbling over words and whatnot. No, but there might be some exclusive audio for those contributors in the future. But we appreciate your support. And not only the financial support, we appreciate the comments, the shares, the likes on all the social media. If you do not follow us, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we are on the Twitter, and of course, we're on YouTube. Look us up, Dave Dynasty on YouTube. You can see lots of Midwest classic wrestling, along with all episodes of the Dave Dynasty Show and much, much more. Woo! And if you're still with us after all the plugs, after all the mumblings, after all the tripped over words, if you're still with us, and you should be, because like I said, it's going to get better. We have official decision with referee Manbun. As we said, we have a whatever happened to with Tiny Tim, better known as Tim Lucarelli. You remember this guy? He's awesome, right? He was great in the ring. He's $1 million. And we caught up with him, see what's happening with him, spoke a little with him. We've got that. And of course, in our main event, the feature is an interview with Midwest star Magnum CK. This guy's great too. What a talent. Got a huge future ahead of him. Got a great story. You're going to hear that today. I'm done, right? I'm going to turn it over. We're going to get to the meat of the content, right? You just had the appetizer. It sucked. No, I'm just joking. Anyway, let's get to it. Let's jump right into it. Referee Manbun, you are up.
1, 2, 3. It's my man bun.
What's good, beautiful people? You are tuned in to Official's Decision with referee Manbun. I'm referee Sean O'Brien, also known as referee Manbun. IWA Mid-South had ran a couple big shows this past week. One show streamed live on powerbomb.tv for the whole world to see. And then the other one was one of IWA's biggest shows of the year, as well as one of the biggest deathmatch shows of the year in Prince of the Deathmatch. So let's go ahead and roll on into the action. On Thursday, IWA presented No Retreat, No Surrender. And as I had said before, this show was streaming live on powerbomb.tv. And because of that, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of details. Also, I had to dip out early from the show, which you'll find out the reason why here in just a little bit. But if you have not signed up for Powerbomb, why haven't you? And also, you can get 20 days for free by signing up now using code IWAMS. So just a little pointer there, little tip if you want to check out Powerbomb, see what it's all about. It's definitely a good resource if you're a wrestling fan, so check it out. Your referees for the evening were myself, John Howard, and John Gray. There were 9 awesome matchups on the card. From top to bottom, it was a stacked show. But like I said, I'm only going to go into a couple of them. Some of those include the terrible Calvin Tankman picked up a big win over Sugar Dunkerton in his first match back since returning from the UK. Good to see Suge back. Hopefully he can pick it up and pick up a victory next time. Some other key matches to check out. Su Yung took on Hudson Envy to continue their story rivalry. This match took place under Texas Deathmatch rules, which means you have to pin your opponent, and then your opponent has to answer a 10 count. And if they're unable to do so, then they lose the match. Needless to say, this match definitely got wild. There was tables, ladders, and chairs involved. At one point, Sue DDT'd Hudson off of the DVD merch table. And also, I got hit in the face with Su Young's infamous red mist. It burned so bad that it actually had knocked me unconscious. And she got me good right in the face. You can see pictures on my social media of my shirt in the aftermath. However, in the end, Hudson Envy was able to pick up the win. We also saw a title change as Myron Reed and Trey Miguel were able to pick up the IWA Tag Team Championships from Pat Monix and Elliot Paul. And in the main event, Larry D challenged Mance Warner for his IWA World Championship. Unfortunately, as I said before, I had to leave. I had to get to the hospital to flush my eyes of the red mist from Su Yung, so I was unable to catch this match. But I'm sure that these two IWA favorites tore the house down. In the end, Mance was able to hang on to his title with a big lariat. And as I said, this show was actually on Powerbomb.tv, and the replay is already up. So you can go watch this entire show on Powerbomb.tv. Like I said, I'm going to repeat myself, but I just want to make sure you guys got it. If you have not signed up for Powerbomb yet, do so and use code IWAMS for your first 20 days free. On Saturday was Prince of the Deathmatch 2018, and the field was stacked. Let's get into the first round action. JC Rotten, Trip Cassidy, Justin Storm, and Amazing Maria were all able to make it out of the first round by winning their three-way total elimination matches. There was different steps for different matches. Don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to go into every single one. But one thing I must add about round one is huge congratulations to Mike Roach, who had an outstanding showing and earned a spot in this year's King of the Deathmatch. He was not able to win. However, he showed out and did a really great job. Mike is a longtime IWA follower and fan who one of his biggest dreams is to be in King of the Deathmatch. He's wrestled a few matches in the area. Congratulations to Mike Roach. Good to see him accomplish his dreams. In second round action, Amazing Maria defeated Justin Storm in a Taipei Drunken Death match, which meant usual Taipei deathmatch rules with the broken glass over top of the tape fist. However, as an added stipulation, every 2 minutes, each competitor had to take a shot of alcohol, which made for a lot of fun if you catch my drift. This match was definitely entertaining, and Maria was able to pick up the win. So the only female in the tournament was able to make it into the finals. We also saw JC Rotten pick up a win over Trip Cassidy in a Fans Bring the Weapons match. Quick side note, please send positive thoughts and prayers to Trip Cassidy as he suffered a pretty bad injury after a freak accident. Things happen like this, and Trip was able to get to the hospital right away and get taken care of. So hopefully we will see him back very soon, as I'm sure we will. And can't wait to see you back, Trip. In the finals, to crown the new Prince of the Deathmatch, we saw JC Rotten take on Amazing Maria in a House of Pain World Series of Glass, which that stipulation meant that the winner had to put their opponent through 4 out of 7 light tube structures to pick up the W. These two went to war over that crown. This match went all over the place. The ring was covered in broken glass and broken light tubes. Definitely one to check out. Both competitors did an amazing job. However, in the end, IWA would crown their first female Prince of the Deathmatch ever. Maria joins a small group of women who were able to win an all-male deathmatch tournament. Afterwards, Ian would announce that after that showing, both Maria and JC earned a spot in King of the Deathmatch. So congrats to both competitors. Next week, I will only be covering one show, as IWA will be running on Tuesday instead of our usual Thursday, as to not to interfere with March Madness. And yes, folks, it's that big of a deal in this area. Quick plug before I get out of here. I now have shirts. Believe it or not. That's right. You can grab Referee Manbun shirts from me at any show that I'm at. Just pay attention to my social media to see where I'm going to be at. Hit me up. I would love to put a Referee Manbun shirt on your back. Help me get rid of some of these. Speaking of social media, you can follow me at official SPO502. You can also find me on Facebook, Sean Patrick O'Brien. It's SEAN. It's the Irish way. Big shout out and thank you to Dave Dynasty and the Dave Dynasty Show. And I hope to see you guys at a show.
Wrestling fans, be sure to check out Ringside, the upcoming comic strip from Main Event Comics. Ringside will be a series of 3 strips telling stories from the perspectives of a trio of ringside reporters. Each arc will follow a wrestler and story, but don't be surprised if you see returns, crossovers, and surprises as the stories unfold. Main Event Comics is a branch of RCB Studios, and you can look them up and follow them on both Facebook and Instagram. Also, if you are a creative talent, contact Main Event Comics to discuss potential future commissions. Again, look up Main Event Comics on Facebook and Instagram and watch for the upcoming Ringside comic strips.
And welcome back to the Dave Dynasty Show. I'm your co-host, Ike Isaacs, and today I am joined with yet again another amazing guest on our show. As always, we have Magnum CK. How are we doing?
Hey, what's up, man? How's it going?
Oh, doing fantastic. Even better, we got you on here. Had a little bit of technical difficulties, but that doesn't hold us back.
Oh, that's always the way. It would be weird if we didn't have technical difficulties using all this equipment.
That is no truer words have ever been spoken. Oh gosh. Well, we're gonna just jump right into it. So, first question, as always, where are you from?
Well, I've kind of moved all over the place, but originally I was born right outside of a small town right on the edge of Ohio, called Parkersburg, West Virginia. I mean, literally my house was like across the river, like I could see Ohio from my house. but I lived in, Illinois and all different parts of Ohio and stuff. I guess I should say Chicago, because basically Illinois is Chicago and then like a bunch of farms. so it gets a little confusing if you say Illinois, so I'll qualify.
Oh gosh. So, alright, growing up where you did play any sports, have any more confusions on where you live? No kidding.
Well, not really. So I grew up outside of kind of out in the country, but for the most part, I grew up in kind of a really rural environment, and very, it was a poor environment. You know, I grew up, I had a very modest beginning to my life, and, so I didn't have a lot of neighbors or anything. I didn't have like neighbor kids I could run and play with. So, my uncle, was a wrestler and is, still a promoter. And so he exposed me to wrestling. Like, I remember being like 3 years old. I was born in 1986, and I remember going to the World Wrestling Federation in 1989. Like, I remember watching them happen, you know. So some of my first memories are of like Zeus and Hulk Hogan, and like this cake, you know. So I was exposed to all different kinds of wrestling, both live, from all the tapes and stuff. He would always rent tapes and stuff, and so I have a ton of stories about wrestling in my childhood, and I had a ton of time on my hands, and I had to learn to occupy my own time, and wrestling filled that void a lot. I mean, not only did we didn't have like a dish, you know, or like an equivalent of cable until I was almost in junior high, but I would tape shows, you know, like when Raw and Nitro got really popular, I would tape those. But before that, I would watch all the Saturday night WCW Saturday night and the Saturday morning shows. But more than that, because, you know, now, like, dude, you can watch wrestling all day, every day. And you can watch, like, 12 to 20 hours of new content of wrestling, like, this week. But back then, it was like you had, like, 2 hours a week or 3 hours a week if you were lucky. So what I would do is I would come up with my own wrestling stuff. I wrote my own storylines. Like, I literally wrote them out. And I had my own leagues and stuff, and I even made like a wrestling role-playing game, like Dungeons and Dragons, but like I didn't have anybody to play it with, so so I just like made the game, and I was like, all right, well, so that's son. Like, moving on, I guess.
You're just like, here we go.
Yeah, and I got really creative, so I had a lot of time to myself. So you remember Wrestling Buddies? Like the dolls, like the big stuffed dolls. Well, I had a few of those, and so I would just run these hot angles in my yard or the living room, of just like, and I remember distinctly like being Sting all the time. Like I always wanted to be Sting. And then I started making my own characters, where and I swear to God, this is before Scott Levy came up with it. I had a character in the early 90s when I was a kid called the Raven. And he was like this brooding, weird, like high flying guy. But so I got really creative with wrestling. I wrote my own wrestling magazine, and I had one subscriber. It was my uncle. He paid me $5 a month, and every week I would cut pictures out of like PWI magazine, and I would write my own articles about like my predictions, and like I'd make up like interviews with like Scott Hall and stuff. I was in like 5th grade. And I would mail him copies of the magazine. So luckily for me, it was kind of miserable at the time, but luckily for me, I grew up in an environment where I had to be very creative to occupy myself and keep my mind busy. And that's where wrestling came in.
Absolutely. I mean, that sounds like an amazing childhood. I mean, obviously, I kind of grew up in a really small town, so I kind of get that. But you're right. It would be a little. You're just like, man, I have all this great stuff that I cannot share with anybody, and that would be awful.
Well, I remember taking the magazine I wrote because, my mom would bring home office supplies. She worked in this office, and she would bring me home like little things to like bind the paper together and stuff, like kind of what you put a presentation in, like a clear plastic cover and everything. Yeah. And I remember taking one to school one time because I was reading through it, and this was right before wrestling had stopped being cool, and it was right before wrestling was about to become cool again. And I remember the NWO had kind of just started. Like I don't even think it started. Like Scott Hall had shown up, and I wrote this article about how Razor Ramon was in WCW, and like, is he going to have any friends? I don't even know. This is some terrible 5th grader, 5th grade or whatever it was, 6th grade article. And I remember a couple of my friends like wanting copies of the magazine, so I had my mom make a couple of copies at her office, and I gave them copies of my magazine. So hopefully all copies have been destroyed because I'm sure it's terrible.
I'm gonna put my feelers out there. I'm gonna Google. Anybody got a copy of a 5th grade magazine? No, I'm kidding. So I mean, it sounds like, due to your circumstances, you were predisposed to wrestling pretty much from the get-go. So, I mean, you did all this great stuff. You made the role-playing game. You made magazines. I mean, when I was in 5th grade, I was still, like, picking my nose and eating glue. So, like, props to you.
Well, I found a tape recorder of all things. So, like, my grandparents, a couple of my grandparents lived down the road from me about a half of a mile. So I would walk down to their house. I was just bored all the time. And they were hoarders, so they would go to like auctions and yard sales, and they would just buy all this crap. And I saw in their like storage building, they had a tape recorder, like, a cassette tape recorder. And I asked if I could have it. And I'm like, yeah, I guess, they didn't know what all that crap was. So I took it back to my house, and what I would do is I would take my wrestling figures or whatever, and I would come up with my own like storylines and everything, and I would record it, and I would be the commentator, and I would put together these like live shows, and I probably had like 50 tapes full of these like me running these shows with all these angles and everything. It's pretty ridiculous.
That is a sign of a fantastic imagination, which I'm sure helped you a lot when you started wrestling.
It didn't help me get any girlfriends.
You're right. It didn't help me with that part of my life, no.
No, not a long, long time.
Nowadays, being imaginative and creative, that's what's cool nowadays.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So, I do a lot of work in theater and stuff like that. And I'm currently directing a show for our local high school here in my town here. And so I hang out, I'm down there all the time. And I noticed that like everybody's just cool now. Like, this is a kind of a progressive area I live in, I suppose. But Like, there's not like, oh, those people are nerds, don't talk to them, or oh, that guy reads comic books, it's gross. Now everybody's just kind of friends with everybody, and everybody's cool and like inclusive, and like nobody's really making fun of anybody. It's like, it's pretty awesome. But like, jealous in a way, because it's not like I graduated in the 70s. Like, I didn't graduate that long ago. It's like so much has changed in the last 10 years, and I guess it's a good thing, but I'm jealous.
Right. I was gonna say, I was like, that's how it is now, because I have brothers in high school. I'm like, I graduated like 4 years ago, and I was like, stuff was so different, even like 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I'm like, y'all have it lucky now.
Yeah, well, it's getting better and better, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, can't complain. That's what I like to hear. Everything's getting better. No, but so we've kind of encompassed a lot about that first part of your life where you're just like getting that love and that drive for wrestling. But when was it that you were like, I want to wrestle? Like, I want this to be part of my life, part of my career. And how did you make that first step into getting trained?
Well, it's kind of a weird thing. It was always a ubiquitous thing for me. Like, it was always around, and it was always something I wanted to do. Now, I will say, we talked about having all this time to create, and I had to kind of be my own best friend and stuff. And again, later, my later childhood, I had a best friend named Ray who was really cool, and he really helped me out to become a cooler adult. He's an interesting guy. But it was like, you couldn't do that. You couldn't be a wrestler. In my mind, even though my uncle was one, like, it seemed like something I could do, but it was just like, I was kind of surrounded by this attitude of like, this, being low income, it puts blinders on for the rest of, for everything else. Everything's short term. It's always like, well, how can I get through this week? Like, I got to get to the next paycheck, So that's kind of what I grew up around. And, so it was like, well, that's a cool thing. Yeah, it's possible, I guess, you could be like a local wrestler or something, but like, more importantly, you're 15 now, you need to get a job type mentality of like, okay, get a work permit and get a job someplace. So, I don't know, it just seemed like something that was, like a dream, and I didn't have the guts at first to kind of go for it. And so, I ended up working in a movie theater of all things. And, there was a wrestler there, or a guy who worked there who I recognized from local wrestling shows, and I was like, "What? Like, oh my god! Like, this wrestler that I've watched, for like a year and a half or something, works in this movie theater." And at first, I'm sure I made it uncomfortable because I went up to him and started talking to him like, "Oh my gosh! Like, I saw you on the show, blah blah blah." And of course, it's like weird, and uncomfortable because now I am at his like other job, his real job or whatever. So at first, he kind of cold shouldered me and was just like, "Yeah, okay." Like, But we ended up becoming really, really good friends, and we're still friends to this day. But anyway, he kind of got me to train because I didn't have any money. And so what I did was, I got a little, like, my entrepreneurial spirit, I suppose. My parents, my grandparents, I should say, had this old building that used to be a church. It was built in like 1891 or something. Like, it's this, like, landmark. And it was just being used as a storage building because you can't legally tear it down because it's like a historical building.
Yeah.
And it's just sturdy. It's built on these like big stone pillars or whatever. But, and it was just kind of half empty, I mean, it was, there's plenty of room in it. So, my friend, Tim, who I met, the wrestler, he brought me into the show before the show, set up the ring and to train. And the promoter came out, who was a real sleazeball, and wanted to get money from me, all this stuff. I'm not saying people who want money for training are sleazeballs, but this guy just happened to be one. But anyway, and I didn't have any money, so I had to get out of the ring, and I was like, man, this sucks. I'm never going to be able to do this. And then I had an idea. I was like, I have this building. I was like, they only train one day a month when they have a show. What if they could train every night if they wanted? So I approached the guy, and I was like, hey, my family, my grandparents have this old building. It's kind of out of the way. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but you could store your ring there. You could have your guys set up. Well, we could set up the ring, and I'll let you use this, to charge people to come and train if you just let me train for free. And of course, he saw dollar signs because it's free building to have, training. So, I went out, and for the next like 6 months, almost every evening I went out and wrestled for hours and hours and hours and probably had a few hundred matches just in training, and I actually started wrestling out of that. I got booked by this same guy as a surprise, because he told me he was running a show in Glenville, West Virginia, Glenville College. And it was supposed to be about 2,000 fans coming to the show because students, the college was paying for it. It was a paid show, so students got in for free. They had Dusty Rhodes, Jeff Jarrett. This was in February 26, 2005. And it was Jeff Jarrett, and they had Abyss, and a couple of like some NWA champions at the time. Some of those like I guess nowadays they'd be like super indie guys, but So anyway, I'm told, hey, come set up the ring, and you could be in the battle royal. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm going to be in a battle royal. Like, this is crazy. I didn't even have my gear yet. I had my boots and my knee pads, but I didn't have my trunks yet. And then all of a sudden, the promoter comes up and he's like, and first of all, I just met Dusty Rhodes, and I'm like shaking hands with Jeff Jarrett. I'm like, oh my god. And then the promoter comes up and he's like, hey, you got a match? And I was like, yeah, the battle royal. He was like, no, you're in a match. And I was like, oh my god, I wanted to throw up. So the training went by faster than I thought because I got a lot of training in very quickly, and I just kind of hit the ground running. And I wrestled for, I'd say about almost 5, just about 5 years, and then just some life things kind of got in the way, and this and that. A few things happened, and I ended up getting out of active competition in the ring. But then my life really turned around, took a lot of positive turns after that, and a little over 2 years ago, I decided that I wanted to come back. My wife encouraged me, and we had just gotten married, and she encouraged me. She saw how much I missed it, and how I talked about it, how much I loved it, and she's like, "You're not done with this. You need to go. You need to go back and do it right, do it again." And so I came back on my 30th birthday, April 9th, 2016. I had my first match back, and man, it's almost been 2 years. It's been crazy. Like, just even in the last 6 months, like, so much has happened. It's unbelievable. Like, I'm so grateful and so thankful. I know I'm spinning a big long yarn here, but there's just so much that I could talk about. But that's just a general idea of kind of how I got into it and everything.
No, absolutely. And that's what we like to hear. We like to see the longest, spinning a long yarn, get up on your soapbox, do your thing. That's what we love here. So, no problem with that at all. But funny comparison, one of my first jobs was also at a movie theater, so I feel you there.
Oh, yeah. It was a great job in a lot of ways because, I got free movies. So if I ever wanted, because by that point, I wasn't writing my own wrestling magazine anymore. I'd actually grown tall and a little muscular. So I was getting dates. So I got, it's free dates if you work at the movie theater. You had to take your girlfriend to the movies on a Tuesday because that was your only day off, but you got in for free.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. There ain't nothing wrong with that. Free movies and free popcorn. And if you knew the right people, free free pretzels, free hot dogs. No, I'm kidding.
Dude, that's like $35.
Right, yeah, exactly. I'd be sneaking food in there because I'm like, I am not about to pay $18 for a damn Coke. You know what I mean? Like,
brother, I still do that. My wife and I went to the movies just a few weeks ago, and I wanted a good coffee. I don't want that crappy movie theater coffee. So I stopped at a Starbucks. Lady at the counter where we bought the ticket said, "Oh, you can't take that in." And I was like, "Oh, what? What do you mean?" Like, I act like I didn't know. She's like, "We sell coffee here. You can't take it." Oh, okay. Where's your restroom? I went to the restroom. I took the Starbucks in the cardboard cup or whatever. I put it in my jacket pocket on the inside, and just slowly sauntered into the theater with it. Like, she had to know. But I'm like, "What, are you gonna search me?"
Right. You're gonna pat me down for my cup of coffee? Who do you think you are?
Right.
Oh man. Hey, and that's the thing too, is that like I can speak from experience. I don't even care, man. Like, people come up, they'd have whatever. I'd be like, I honestly don't care. Just go.
Well, you shouldn't care. I mean, listen, if some guy comes in or whoever comes in with like a violin case or something weird or like a backpack full of God knows what, all right. Well, listen, pal, leave it in the locker, leave it in your car or something. But I just come in with like a cappuccino or something. Like, get off my back. Like, come on. I didn't bring a big bag full of like Applebee's curbside to go, and I'm gonna like have a full picnic in your theater. I just want to finish my coffee that is better than the crap you sell.
That's right. That's what I tell people. It's like, it's not like I'm bringing in like, something sketchy. It's literally just a freaking candy. It's a candy bar. What do you want?
Yeah.
But anyways, again, tangent. I do that a lot. People actually comment on that. They're like, "Hey, you want a lot of tangents." I'm like, "Yes, I do."
Well, I could totally relate. I have a legit diagnosis, ADHD, brother. I'm out there every different direction.
I feel you. It's like a mile a minute going in my head. I'm like, oh, hey, talk about that. Talk about that.
Right.
So I do want to ask you, because this is a little back on track a little bit. So your name, your gimmick is Magnum CK. Now,
Yeah.
to me, that sounds kind of 80. Makes me think of what is it, Magnum PI?
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us about your name and your gimmick. How did you come up with it, and your influences for that?
Well, a lot of different things. So, I don't mind saying my actual last name is Parsons. My name is Chris Parsons, and my uncle wrestled under the name Rock Parsons, and he started in the late '80s. And when I started wrestling, for some reason in my head, like looking back, I think the name Chris Parsons is fine. I mean, it's not like exactly super theatrical, but it would have been fine. But at the time, I was like, I don't know, like I just didn't feel that last name. And one of my favorite actors of all time. I'm a big Mel Brooks fan, and one of my favorites of all time, her name was Madeline Kahn, and Kahn. And I was trying to come up with a name, and I was 18 years old, and I just popped in Blazing Saddles, and then on the credits it popped up and it said Madeline Kahn, and I was like Kahn, I was like Chris Kahn, like wow, okay, see like the alliteration, like wow, okay, that sounds all right, So I went with that, and then when I came back to wrestling in 2016, I had that same name, and I just wasn't feeling, I don't know. And then so I was kind of doing this really over the top kind of 80s type character with all these bandanas and stuff, and just like an 80s NWA wrestler or something, and satin jackets and everything, and just kind of doing what I like about wrestling. And I made an Instagram post because I had grown my chest hair out too, because I was like, oh, that's 80s. I had a mustache, and I was like, I just as a joke, I put Magnum CK because it kind of rhymed with Magnum TA, because he had the chest hair and everything, and which is a takeoff of Magnum PI. And my friend Mike, who ended up, we made the movie Marking Out together, which is a wrestling documentary on Amazon Prime, just cheap plug, and he said, dude, that name's gold. Like, that's great. Like, that's hilarious. Like, dude, Magnum CK, that should be your name. And I was like, really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Why not? That sounds great. So it was just a way to kind of reinvent myself a little bit. And, I guess it's not exactly the most original thing ever, but in a way, I guess it kind of is. I don't, it's not meaning any disrespect or any ripoff of Magnum TA or Magnum PI, because I think we're very different. I mean, especially what I'm doing now is completely different from what either one of those two characters were. So it's just kind of making it my own thing. And I like it because, I have a lot of friends in wrestling now, and, again, and, they all call me CK or Magnum or something, Mags or something. And it's like, it's cool. It's like a nickname. So, it's just kind of a takeoff of all that. And I wanted something that when you heard it, it was like, oh man, was that from the 80s? And it's like, yeah, I don't want to play the character of, hey, I'm that 80s guy. And, oh, you guys remember Whitesnake? And like wear, denim vest with patches on it. I just want to feel like there was a wrestler from like 1983 Memphis or something who got transplanted into the 21st century in 2018. And now he's here. And what do we do with him? So I thought that name just screams 80s. So, yeah, why not? Just go for it.
Hey, you guys remember Whitesnake?
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It was like rip-off characters. Like, oh man, I'm an 80s guy. I see all these bandanas and neon pants. Like, it's like, that's not what I'm going for. It's just that I like a certain aesthetic of wrestling. And it just happens to be what I grew up watching, which was the 80s and 90s. And so I took that, I've taken that, and I've taken a lot of things people have forgotten about or maybe remember fondly, and I've repackaged it for the 21st century in 2018, and it's something I'm constantly working on. So I'll take these old Terry Funk tapes and like moves and Dick Slater and Ric Flair stuff that I love, and Roddy Piper and grew up with, and Rick Rude and everything, and I try to repackage it and make it my own thing. Or just be inspired by it. So that's really what the whole deal is.
Oh, absolutely. That's fantastic. Like you said, it may be drawing from different sources, but it's original because, like you said, you're just you're repackaging, making it your own. It's not like you're just like, hey guys, you remember Whitesnake? I want to make that a T-shirt now, honestly.
Yeah, that would be great. Just like a black shirt that says "You remember Whitesnake." Well, that's what I think. Is my friend Mike and I, we always make fun of everybody. I mean, listen, not to be a jerk, but like he was just telling me about that movie that just came out not that long ago called Ready Player One, which I had never heard of, and I try to stay up on certain things. I'm more up on. I'm a politics guy. I could tell you everything that happened today in the White House, but just because I follow it. But then sometimes I lag behind on pop culture. So he was explaining it to me, and it's exactly the type of stuff that. And I haven't seen the movie, but it's the type of stuff we make fun of. Where it's like those posts that say like only '90s kids remember this, like Street Sharks, and it's like, all right, man, I get it. Like, listen, Street Sharks were awesome when I was a kid, and I don't even know if you know what I'm talking about when I say Street Sharks, yeah. But like that type of thing where it's like, hey, remember this when you were a kid? It's like, so you see that post online and I'm like, yeah, I remember Street Sharks. And it's like, yeah, well, you remember it? I'm like, yeah, is that it? Like, is that like, are you just giving like a Street Sharks fact or like what? Okay. Like, yeah, I remember them. Okay. I guess we're done. Like, so that whole mentality of like, oh man, my personality is going to be like, remember all this old stuff. And it's like, that's fine. Like, for instance, one of my best friends in wrestling, is Derek Direction, or Derek Director, as he's known in AIW. And my man loves 90s Nickelodeon, and we just had a conversation tonight about the Three Ninjas movies, So, and he bases a lot of what he does around that retro stuff, but he adds depth to it. It's not just, hey, you remember, you remember G.I. Joe? That was cool. It's like, yeah, I guess, but like, what about it?
Right.
So he takes it to the next level and uses it and makes it a part of his personality, not just like, I'm going to wear a Batman shirt. You remember Batman? Like, all right, cool. Like, I don't even know why I got off on that.
I'm the same way because I'm definitely one of those people, like, I'll like anything I like, for instance, shirts that I wear. Like, it sounds super stupid, but like I don't wear a shirt about something unless I have like a very intricate knowledge of. Like, I wouldn't wear something that I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh yeah, I remember this thing. Do you guys remember this thing? And I hate those posts too, where they're like, hey, you remember Rugrats? Or, oh hey, you remember Ren and Stimpy, or some crazy obscure show from the '90s? And like you said, you're just like, sure, I remember it. What about it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or like, hey, only 90s kids remember Hey Arnold. And I'm like, yeah, I remember Hey Arnold. What do you have to say about it? Well, nothing. You remember it? I'm like, yeah, I remember it. Like, I guess.
You're like, yes, I have recollection of X, Y, or Z. Why are we talking about it?
That doesn't give me a personality because it's like, listen, everybody remembers something. Like, all right. But like, see, I like certain things. Like, I love Mystery Science Theater 3000. I've always loved it. I used to watch it when I was a kid, and it's probably part of where my sense of humor comes from. But they said they were remaking it, and I was pumped. I was just like, that's awesome, Like I'm also not one of those people that's like, oh, don't remake it. Oh, it's gonna ruin the original. Because guess what? They remade Mystery Science Theater 3000. Guess what else also exists? The old one that I also love. I can watch them both. Or let's say the new one was terrible. I won't watch that new one. I'll watch the old one because I like it better. But why not let new generations have it too? Like, I don't understand the whole thing of like, oh, they're ruining it, they're remaking it. It's like, well, listen, the original Batman's still on VHS. It's on DVD. It's on Blu-ray. You can watch it right now. Like it doesn't, they're not making a new Batman and then going back and deleting all the old Batmans.
That is fantastic. I feel like that's what I've always wanted to say. I just never knew how to word it. It's like, remakes does not mean that they go back in time and just like shoot Michael Keaton in the head, and they're just like, no more Batman.
Like, sorry, Jack Nicholson is dead. We burned all the Batman tapes. You got to watch this new one. They're like, no. Listen, when you were 8 years old, you watched whatever Batman movie came out when you were 8, and you thought it was the best Batman movie ever. Now, there's some other 8 or 9 year old who sees the new one and is like, oh my god, that's the best ever. Why not? Like, let them have it. Like, who cares?
Exactly. I would rather the livelihood of things that I love stay alive through remakes so that people can go back and see the old ones.
You know what else happened? It's just like when they released that game Guitar Hero. What happened? all those songs, Foreigner, Boston, all that stuff, they went through the roof on iTunes because all these younger kids were like, what is this? Rush? Like, I never heard of Rush. This song's awesome. And then they downloaded it, and then all of a sudden Rush gets like $5 million overnight out of from iTunes or something. So there's nothing wrong with it. Like, let's keep it going, but don't base your entire personality on how many pop culture references but you can keep it alive in other ways. Like, I'm looking at a dresser in my room. I have a little home studio set up in my room here, and I'm looking at a dresser that's covered in like retro stick, like Goonies. I have Goonies Never Say Die tattooed on my arm, because it means something to me, because that's an inspirational thing, and I really like that movie. I also have like Ash from the Evil Dead and like a Friday the 13th tattoo and all these other things. And I have Jack Nicholson from The Shining tattooed on my arm. That doesn't mean anything like to my heart or it has a hidden meaning. It's like, no, The Shining's a badass movie. Like, I really like it. If they remade The Shining, I'd probably watch it.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. And I like how you're like, probably it's not that it defines who you are. It just kind of helps mold your character a little bit. Because call it bad parenting. I love Friends, the TV show Friends. I don't know why. It's super watchable.
My wife loves it too, yeah.
And I watched that as a kid, and like, I'm a super sarcastic adult now, and I think it's because of Friends, so that's just how it is, But anyways, again, wild tangent. Somebody please comment on that. Wrestling. Independent wrestling. Let's talk about independent wrestling. Right now it's amazing. Independent wrestling, super hot, super everything. It's got all that in a bag of chips. Since you're a part of it, what do you think the best and worst part about being an independent wrestler is?
It's the best. I mean, the creative freedom for me is the absolute best. I'm blessed to be able to work for a lot of great places that have important, what I would consider, and a lot of people would consider important, highly visible content, like AIW comes to mind. I mean, when I debuted for AIW I think it was last September, I just did a run-in and I did one move. I picked PB Smooth up for a spine buster, and half the crowd didn't even know who I was. But I got more follows and tweets and retweets and stuff sent to me and videos and inquiries and messages and bookings out of that one move that I did in September of last year than anything I did to that year leading up, like for the 9 months before that of 2016. So, or 2017 rather. So, I feel really lucky. And I'm mindful of how lucky I am. And also, a lot of hard work went into it as well, and still does. But again, a lot of it's good fortune. And so I'm just thankful to be in a lot of the places where I am. So I'm thankful that places like AIW could put me with a good group in the production and be like, all right, they'll give us enough guidance to help expose us to the audience and give us good spots on the show. But ultimately, it's kind of up to us. And I'm a really creative type. And so I love to mold and come up with matches and come up with ideas and make videos and add. And as I get better and better at wrestling, which is, that's not like a conceited thing. It's just more of it's an active process for me. I mean, I had someone who was almost a mentor to me in theater, talk about how, all the time he was 80 years old when I met him, and he was about 85 when he died. And he told me, he's like, you're never done learning ever. And if you think you're done learning, then you should just quit because, you've closed off your mind to it. You're not open to it anymore. So I actively pursue to get better and better at wrestling all the time, or whatever I'm doing. So now to not only be given this creative freedom, but now be at a point where I feel like I can really do something with it, where it's like, okay, I can add in little nuanced things now because I'm not sitting thinking about like, oh, the audience, oh, what do I do? Oh, next. I'm really present in the moment, and I'm also thinking like 5 steps ahead at the same time, so I can add little tiny things that people will notice. And sometimes I do it without even thinking about it. Like I forget what it was. A couple months ago, I came to the back after a match. I think it was in Cleveland, And like, I had like 4 people come up to me, a couple of fans and a couple of wrestlers from the back who were watching, and be like, I love this one thing you did. It was so small, but it was so good. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I must have just done it without even thinking about it, you know? So once you get to a spot where you're kind of just in it without really even having to think about being in it, is when you can really cruise and have some fun. And, I'm really having a good time. And as far as a downside, I mean, it can be a hard life. I mean, it's a hard life even if you're at, you know, it's a hard life even for John Cena, you know, but who I would consider at the top, or one of them. But it's a hard life for us, on the independents as well, because, you know, we have to travel quite a bit, but, we don't have the upside. We don't have there aren't any guarantees, you know. It's been a week and a half now. I had my nose shattered in a match, which is why I sound a little stuffed up. Just a timing issue, you know, just an accident. And, I mean, I have insurance, you know, which helps, but still I had to pay for that. I mean, I had to pay $150 that night just at the emergency room, you know, and, on April 5th or 6th, I go back, you know, to see if they need to pop it back into place or fix it or see if I have a deviated septum, you know, that all costs money. That wasn't planned. And, you know, driving all these places, it costs money. It all comes out of pocket. You know, I'm one of those guys. I invest a lot in myself, you know, not only just training and nutrition, but, you know, and tanning and all that. But my outfits, I mean, you know, they're expensive, but, I want to do it a certain way. And to me, that's the right way to do it. So, you know, I would shudder to do the accounting on all this. But that's probably the downside is it's hard to turn money. You know, if I want to order a bunch of shirts, well, you know, I have to pay for all that, you know, and I buy quality merchandise. You know, the first few sets of shirts I bought when I came back, because my first time around in wrestling, I didn't have any shirts because you didn't do it as much back then, but now it's much more accessible. So, my first couple rounds of shirts I got kind of from this guy who was a nice guy, but you know, I only paid like, I forget what it even was, but I didn't pay very much per shirt. And then I would see fans come back to my merchandise table a couple of months later with my shirt on, and it would be like faded or look all stiff, and like the letters would be faded, and I felt terrible. So I found this great company called Live Kayfabe. They were, through Old Wrestling, who I work for, also. And, man, they hooked me up with these like cause I buy shirts based on feel a lot of times. You know, you talked about how you wouldn't wear a shirt if you didn't know what it was. I know nothing about the Transformers. I don't care about the Transformers. I'm not anti-Transformer. But I just know nothing, and I really have very little interest in the Transformers. But I bought a Transformers shirt from Target because it was the freaking softest shirt I've ever felt in my life. I bought one for myself, and my wife has one. So I can name Optimus Prime, and that's about it. I don't know other than that. I think there's a Bumblebee or something. But, you know, so I bought from this company, the softest possible shirts I can find. Now I pay about double of what I paid before for these shirts to produce these shirts. So I don't really make as much money, but to me, it's worth it because it's like, if I'm going to invest thousands of dollars in outfits and boots and, you know, glittering golden capes and, you know, all the time and all this stuff, and then, you know, have these crappy shirts, doesn't make any sense. But I would feel much better about making far less money on these shirts, but be selling fans something I'm proud of. So, I feel that way with the way I work in the ring and the videos I put out. I mean, I sit around for hours and make these things because I just want it to be quality. Because in my mind, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it right. But, also, you know, hard work doesn't always equal success, but more often than not, it does, you know. So, if I could I'll drop a name. I think I'm about to drop a name here somewhere, but Norman Smiley told me about 10 years ago. I wrestled him a couple of times. It was the weirdest, but he was the coolest guy, but it was just weird because it was the first match was just us against each other. The next match, I forget. I think it was like a triple threat with David Young, Norman Smiley versus me. And the blow off, you want to know what the blow off was? Scotty Riggs and me against Norman Smiley and Shark Boy and their manager Daphne. It was I was like, I am not meant to be in this. But anyway, he gave me some great advice. He's like, you know, Rey Mysterio told me this. He said, success is when preparation and opportunity meet. And I've always kept that because I'm like, listen, I can't control when opportunities are going to come my way. All I can do is be ready for them and keep putting myself out there because, you're never going to get an opportunity from your couch unless you're, like a phone sex operator or something. I don't know what opportunities you're going to get. So all I do is keep putting myself out there and I keep doing the best I can because I can tell you I've been in the middle of nowhere and I thought, man, I could just dog it tonight. Who cares? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to. But guess who was in the crowd? A promoter for a bigger promotion who saw me and was like, hey, can you come in for us? You know what I mean? So you just never know what's going to happen. So whether it's my gear, whether it's my work, my videos, or my shirts, I always try to do the best I can. But like I said, we're on the independent, so that all comes out of pocket. So that can be a little rough sometimes. But again, I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't love it,
Exactly. That's the most important thing is that you love it, right?
Well, yeah, if you don't love it, what's the point? I was just talking to a friend of mine about this the other night because there was someone in the locker room, and I can't remember who it was. One of these guys who's a veteran or claims to be. I can't remember. But they were just talking about, how miserable they are, and, I got to quit the business and all that. It's like, well, then do it. Who wants you? I mean, honestly, like, I think some of that's a show sometimes, but imagine you worked. Why isn't wrestling treated like every other job everybody else has? If you're sitting around the office belly aching about how, oh God, I should just retire. Oh, I don't want to quit. How long before some boss walks by and was like, well, then bye. I'll help you out the door if you want. Like, God,
Right.
So why should wrestling be any different? If you don't want to do it, then my God, stay home because I can tell you, even on the lowest level independent show, I guarantee you there are 20 guys who would kill to be on that card. So leave, make a spot for them then.
Exactly. That's what kills me too. Is like in any profession, even where I work now, I work in a call center. I hear people all the time who are like, "Oh no, this job sucks," and I'm like, "But like, it's a good pay. You're doing good stuff. If you don't like it, literally, here's a white box. Please leave because I don't want to hear it." You know what I mean?
Bro, the most money I ever made in my life was when I was living in Chicago, and I had a great paying job, and it wasn't glamorous, but it was an easy job. I worked for a multi-billion-dollar company. I had a lot of responsibilities, and I was very good at it. But I was surrounded by people who just pissed and moaned and belly ached, and I'm looking for another job. And I told every single one of them right to their face, I was like, I'll tell you what, you've been here for how many years? Quit, and I guarantee you'll find another job. Because they just sit there and they just want to look out the window about how green the grass is across the way. Then walk out there, go, quit, because a good motivator is not having a paycheck coming next week. So if you really hate it that much, then why don't you go ahead and quit today, no notice, and then see if you can get a job by the end of the week, because I bet you probably can.
Right. Yeah, you're right. No money's a fantastic motivator. It gets you really going.
Right.
Oh gosh, man, I could talk forever about people like that, but I'm not gonna because what they say: if you ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say it at all, right?
Well, no, that's a good mindset too. And like I said, I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but I'm just saying, if you want to sit around and bitch about it and have a bad attitude, well then clear out. You're doing it as a character or you want to seem interesting, then I feel bad for you because I'm sure there are more interesting parts of your personality than that.
Right. And let me rephrase. I say if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. But I really live by that because for whatever reason, I have no filter. And things just kind of come out. And that gets me in trouble sometimes. But it's okay. It's part of my character. But anyways, I guess a random callback. I too actually bought a Transformer shirt from Target. It was really soft and it was pink. I don't know. I random thought I bought that a long time ago, but it was super soft. I do that too. I'll be like, man, this shirt is so soft. Oh, it fits so great. I don't even know what this is, but I'm gonna buy it.
I do it all the time. There have been shirts. Sometimes I'm nervous about. Here's a story, a quick one. Last night, because I get nervous about buying shirts online sometimes because I'm like, man, what if this is like a crappy 100% cotton Gildan or whatever that company is. Like, oh man, I don't want that. Like, it was a cool shirt. It was really awesome. And I'm like, I don't want it to be like a crappy on a crappy fabric. So I'm actually sitting on Google researching because it put what kind of shirt it was. I'm like researching it, like reading reviews for this like $14 shirt or 18, whatever it was. And I'm like doing reviews about it. So I'm in deep on it too. I'm serious.
You're like, I take my online purchases really fucking serious. Don't even start with me.
Because I know that if I don't like the shirt, if it's not soft and comfortable, I'll just never wear it.
That's honestly the truest thing ever. And also, like, if it's like that, you know, like you said, the Gildon, like that really like weird coarse fabric, like the laminates or like the little whatever decals are on it, they never stick either. They always come off in the washer, no matter what I do. So.
Well, yeah, and then they always shrink like up or something. Like they get shorter or something, like more boxy the more you wash them. I don't know what's going on.
Right? Yeah, or like they'll shrink, but like only on one part of the shirt. So it's like it's long in the front but short in the back. I don't know how the hell these shirts do that, but they do it. Oh,
right.
God. Seriously, this entire interview has been tangent after tangent. Dave's gonna kill me. If you're listening to this, Dave, it's okay. Just put it out there. I guarantee they'll love it. So maybe another, I guess, personal thing about you. Besides all the wrestling stuff, I mean, we kind of talked about your personal hobbies, your interests, such as researching the types of shirts you buy. But what's one thing most people don't know about Magnum CK or Chris Parsons?
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, I talk about my theater background a lot, on a lot of different things. I'm kind of, this is a weird thing to say, but I'm kind of like an academic in a sense. I study a lot. I'm finishing an education degree. I'm really passionate about education and just preparing good citizens for the future. But I think one thing I don't talk about a lot, and I don't get into affiliations, but I do follow politics very closely. I've been since the year 2000 when I was in high school, junior high. I've been very interested and fascinated by politics. So I think one very boring fact about me is that I literally said I have 2 Twitter accounts. I have one that doesn't have any followers or anything. That's just like a junk, name or whatever. And I just follow all my political, all my political news sites and everything and blogs and everything. So I can just flip over to that because Twitter's the best place for news. So I just sit there and I'll refresh that more than my actual Twitter.
Right.
It's ridiculous. That, and I will say I'm looking at a big couple of shelves full of action figures. I collect a lot of different collectibles and stuff like that. To a ridiculous degree, I would say. Like right now, I'm looking at 2 different tugboats and a typhoon on my shelf right now from the WWF. So, and actually I see 2 Yokozunas as well. So
that is fantastic. Oh man.
So I do collect.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. I actually talked to somebody the other day. We interviewed someone, I can't remember their name now. They collect Funko Pops, and I was like, hey, that's really interesting. I love Funko Pops. Those things are so cool. But no, yeah, that's another fun fact about me. I also, I guess, kind of relate. I was a history major. I do advertising marketing, so I'm an academic myself. I love to learn. I was going to teach history, but I was like, I don't have a passion for teaching, but I love history. So I love politics as well, but don't get me started on politics. I will never talk about politics on this podcast for a few reasons. One of them is I'm pretty sure Dave would kill me, but other than that.
Well, it's just not worth it. It's because you just, you're just going to get arguments with people and you can't convince anybody, so who cares? So I just follow it, just because I enjoy it. But Funko Pops, I'm way into that too. My wife and I got way deep into those too. So we have quite an extensive collection of that. We're trying, we try to move all that stuff to the other rooms because there was a time when it seemed like our whole house was decorated with just like collectible crap. And it's like, listen, we're adults here. I don't want like my mother-in-law walking in and tripping over like my original Batman 1966 pop vinyls. It's like, I'll put them in the bedroom.
That's how I am. I used to have this like big crate of just like random wrestlers, right? And I didn't have a place for them at my old place. So I would just have them sitting behind my door, and I couldn't open my door all the way. So anybody who came in my door was like, clunk, clunk. What is behind your door? Oh, it's a crate full of wrestlers. Don't worry about it.
Well, it's always been a thing for me. So like when I was a kid, like I said, we grew up out in kind of the middle of nowhere in the country. We had these big, tall trees out back behind our house. And this huge storm came through and blew a tree down, and it fell through our house, like through our kitchen, right? So like could have killed somebody. Like it was like fell all the way through, smashed our refrigerator, like right down in half. It was crazy. And then so my parents came running back, and of course I heard it, and saw what was going on. And so we were going to leave, in case any more trees were going to fall. We're going to go to my grandma's house. And they're like, hey, go put your shoes on really fast. We're getting the hell out of here. I literally ran back to my room. I was in 8th grade. I ran back to my room. I threw all of my wrestling figures into a big tote and was like running out to my parents' car, like with this big tote full of wrestling figures. So like the one thing that I was determined to save if our house was going to get destroyed was my box of wrestling figures.
You're like, hell or high water, these are coming with me, even if I have to die.
Like I got the new Jeff Jarrett. I gotta get. Where is it? Like,
oh God. I feel that on a spiritual level.
right.
It
runs deep.
It does. It's like I get attached to like random things, and I'm like, literally, if I don't have this, it'd be like, oh my God. Oh man. So I guess kind of to wind down this crazy train. I mean, oh my Lord, but kind of to wind down our wild trail of stories. What are your goals for 2018? I mean, we've talked a lot about what you've done, what you're doing, but let's talk about the future. What are your plans for 2018, or what's left of it?
Well, it just depends. I mean, sometimes they say a good way to hear God laugh is to make some plans, right? So I try not to get super, super specific, but I do have some kind of longer term goals. Like, when I first started back in wrestling, Old Wrestling was a place I wanted to get to, and I've been able to check that off the list and become a member of their current roster. And AIW was another one. And I'm on their roster now as a recurring person. And I'm breaking into New Jersey. I'll be headed up to Capitol Wrestling here soon. So a lot of my things are territorial. I have a really great consistent booking in Toronto. So I'm really just kind of branch out. And an old friend of mine that I've known for a long time named Dave Marquez, he runs the United Wrestling Network, and he runs out what he runs in Arizona. And I'm really looking to get some get it together and get out there. I like to be out there. I love Dave, and he's a wonderful, wonderful guy, and he's really given me a lot of praise and kind of spread my name around here and there. So I like to get out California way a little bit. I wouldn't mind branching into maybe even Florida just for the weather. But larger, I want to go to Japan. I want to go to Japan at least once. That's just kind of a personal little bucket list thing. So I'm working on that. So I have a lot of irons in the fire right now, and it's just one of those things where you just have to keep pushing. I mean, I said this on something else I was on a few weeks ago, but for every person you see out there on all these shows and successful and traveling the world, what you don't see is how much work they're putting into it, and how many contacts they're trying to make, and how many trips they're putting together. I mean, like you look at guys like Matt Cross, right? Like he's a wonderful guy. I've known him a very long time. But when he first started going on these overseas like tours and stuff, it's not like someone just called him and was like, "Hey, Matt Cross, do you want to come to Germany for a month?" No, he reached out. I mean, it's entirely possible that someone was interested in him first. I'm not saying that, but he reached out to, say he got a booking in Germany. Well, he reached out to all the surrounding areas and said, "Hey, I'm going to be over there." And then blah, 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 blah. And he links all these shows together, and he ends up going over for a month and working 30 times, So what people don't understand is all the legwork that goes into all this, and all the hounding people and messaging and sending out, a good, for instance, is Remix Pro Wrestling, who has a big show. They have a big show coming up in April in Marietta, Ohio. You should definitely check out, because they have Pentagon Jr. and so it's just a huge show. Tennille Dashwood's going to be on. It's going to be a big deal. But they gave me access to maybe an admin on their Facebook page, so I could upload some. They wanted me to do some live videos for them. And I just happened to see the messages or whatever, because I got a notification. Oh, you got a new message, and it popped up their inbox. And the amount of wrestlers on there who had messaged them about working, it was crazy. I mean, in a month, it was like 30. It was like every day a new wrestler is being like, "Hey, hello, sir, my name is so and so, and I have here's a video." And all. So I just think it's a constant effort, and you got to love the process because you got to love the hustle, and so my goal is really just to keep doing what I'm doing, keep getting, every month that goes by, I have more followers and I have a little bit more buzz, and I get to do like you guys contact and stuff, so it's like the more I'm out there, the more you get out there. So I'm just keeping that momentum going, and I'm just going to keep going till the wheels come off. And then we'll just see what's next. My life's not going to be over after wrestling. I have plenty of other skills and things I can do, but right now I'm trying to make as much hay while the sun's shining as I can.
Absolutely. I like what that little snippet you said. If you want to see God laugh, make some plans. That sounds another T-shirt idea.
That's true, because you can say, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and that's great. And goals are very important. But I try not to get too vocal about them, because it's like, well, then next thing you know, you have a broken leg, and then well, now what?
Right. I'm not a plans guy. I just do things,
That's kind of my thing. Is my big plan is to keep heading a certain direction. It's not like, okay, by the end of June, I'm gonna be signed with Vince McMahon. Like not, my thing is like, I'm gonna keep pushing. I'm gonna keep driving. I'm gonna keep driving these long drives, getting out there, and just making good relationships and making good impact, and just keeping my positive name out there. Word travels so fast in wrestling, between wrestlers, so just keeping a good taste in everyone's mouth regarding you, and just being nice to people and giving people the time of day and being respectful, that's going to take you a long way. Because I always say, being important to the fans is obviously paramount to what we do. Being over, as they say, brother, is very important. And being popular with the fans, but there aren't very many fans who've got bookings, but I can tell you that plenty of wrestlers have, and plenty of promoters have. So if you just keep positive, good, respectful relationships with all these people you're working with, then things are going to happen for you.
Absolutely. Words of wisdom. No, I'm kidding. Words of wisdom. But so I guess kind of last thing for you, because definitely we want to keep up with you. So social media, where can fans follow you? Where can we keep up with the craziness, the tangents, and everything? Where can that be at?
Well, Twitter's kind of the hub for everything. It's at the Magnum CK, and I have to be at the Magnum CK because some jerk has Magnum CK and he doesn't even use it. So until we get him kicked off and I get switched over, I'm at the Magnum CK. I also have an Instagram. It's also the same username. Those are the two best places, really. I mean, I do have a Facebook, but the Magnum CK Facebook page I don't really keep up or care much about, and I have my personal one too. But yeah, Twitter. Everything goes through Twitter. I'm a recent convert to Twitter. At first, I just had it because I thought everyone had to have it, and then I really realized the fun and value of it, and I try to be active on there. So that's the best place for sure.
No, absolutely. Twitter's the future. I think a lot of people forget that, but Facebook will be a thing of the past. No, I'm kidding. Facebook will probably never die because Mark Zuckerberg's probably got enough money to keep it running even after it stops making money. But, well, Chris, I want to thank you, or Magnum. Oh, I know you already said your name, Chris, so never mind. So, Chris, thanks for talking to us. I mean, it's been a roller coaster in a good way to getting to talk to you today, going over so much just stuff about, your hobbies, your interests, your wrestling career. But it's been a legitimate honor and pleasure, and I really thank you for coming on here and letting us talk to you.
Yeah, anytime, man. I'd love to come back. Thanks. I obviously love the sound of my own voice.
Whatever happened to you?
And we're back with Whatever Happened To, the segment where we catch up on some often overlooked names from Midwest Wrestling's past. I'm Mike Isaacs, and today we're chatting with none other than Tim Lucarelli. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It is not freezing cold outside. It's not raining. I can't ask for anything else.
Yes, indeed.
Well, we're just going to jump right in. So, Tim, first question, as always, tell us how you got started in the wrestling business.
Okay. I've always been a lifelong wrestling fan. I'm from the Cincinnati, Ohio area, so whenever the WWE was in town, they always had the shows at the Cincinnati Gardens, which is kind of sad because they are tearing that building down. And so whenever they were in town, I always went to all the wrestling shows. But there was this little wrestling outfit that always ran shows at Peel's Palace in Erlanger, Kentucky. And I always told myself, man, I want to check out one of these shows sometime just to see what it's about. I've never been to an independent wrestling show ever. I've always went to the WWE shows. So I go into, I buy myself a ticket, and I sit in the front row. And, wow, the wrestlers are really close, and, these guys are actually pretty good. And then I saw two guys in particular that I'm like, man, these guys aren't too much bigger than I am. See, I'm only 5'3". And you might have heard of these guys, Tarek the Great and American Kickboxer.
Oh, yeah.
Like, man, I'm about just as big as these guys are, and, I'm 5'3" and all that. Maybe I don't have to be 6'5" to get in the wrestling business. And then, later on in that show, I heard an announcement about a wrestling school. I'm like, what? There's an actual wrestling school you can learn this? So I go to the gimmick table or whatnot, and I asked about the wrestling school, and they gave me all the information. And I'm like, man, I'm pumped, man. I'm going to sign up for this wrestling school. I'm going to be a big star. No. So after the wrestling show, and I was so pumped up, I actually went to this old gym that was open 24 hours. I had a key card. I went in there, and I sat there, and I worked out for 2 hours straight till 2 in the morning. I was so jacked, so excited. Now I was only 18 years old at the time. And so I think it was on the show was on a Saturday. I think I heard that they were having training on a Tuesday. So I went there on a Tuesday. I saw Wildcat Chris Harris there. I saw Abyss there. I went, paid my $100 deposit, signed up, and the rest is history. Roger Ruffin was the man who trained me.
Oh, wow. So I mean, that was kind of, I think that's like the perfect introduction to wrestling. I always loved wrestling. Goes to an independent show and then just slides right in like, yep, this is what I want to do.
Oh, yeah. I was only 18 at the time. I had never known that there was such a thing as wrestling schools. And once I found out there was one, I told my mom, like, you know what, this is what I want to do. She was all for it. And so the rest is history, I guess.
Right. So obviously, that was, when you're 18. So then you got trained, you went through all the processes, and then you started wrestling. Where all did you work, and who all did you work for during your career?
Well, first of all, I didn't really start off wrestling. I actually, I had to work my way up. When I was training, I had to work at the merchandise table, then I moved up to refereeing. I refereed for probably a good 2 years before I even wrestled on a card. And learning from Roger, who was a WWE referee, you can't learn from, you learn from the best right there. And so that really helped me in the ring, learning the timing, learning when to call spots. That just put me on another level as far as learning the wrestling business. And I always tell people all the time, especially young guys, learn as much as you can, learn how to ring announce, learn how to manage, learn how to referee, learn how to wrestle, because if you know how to do all that, you're invaluable.
Yeah, I mean, and you have a job for life.
Because exactly. I mean, there's been times where I was actually booked to wrestle, but the referee didn't show up, so they'd ask me to referee, and that helps you get booked on the way. And so, yeah, it was probably a good 2 years of refereeing before I actually started wrestling for the NWF full time.
Very nice, very nice. So then when you did start wrestling, what was your first match like?
Well, my first match was actually someone had no-show down in Georgetown, Kentucky for the Mountain Wrestling Association, which was ran by the late Danny Fargo at the time. And so they knew I'd been training. They asked me if I wanted to wrestle. Sure. I had a mask. I went by the name of Pyro at the time. So I'm going up against this guy named Suicide, who is 6'5", well over 330 pounds. I'm 5'3", 165 pounds. You don't need a rocket scientist to tell you how that ended up. That was a pretty quick, short match, but it was a lot of fun.
You don't need a rocket science to tell you how that worked out.
Right.
Wow. So regardless, that was I guess a good way to start out. I mean, I guess it could have been worse, right?
Oh yeah. As far as the NWF, which was my home federation at the time, I was doing the referee thing for a couple of years, and a fellow by the name of Psycho Sam Cody, he kept giving me a hard time, and this was going on for months and months until I'm like, we're not going to take it anymore, and so I fired back on him. It kind of became a segue for me to start wrestling from refereeing. So the fans got all behind me. Here I am wrestling Psycho Sam Cody, who's a big, disgusting heel, and here I am, little referee, who's not going to take it anymore. And so that kind of took off from there. So I started wrestling full time.
Absolutely. So then, obviously, you wrestled more, and you had all these skills. So with all those skills taken in consideration, like you said, I mean that makes you pretty invaluable. You can do just about anything. So taking that into consideration, what are some of your fondest memories? I mean, I'm sure you've got memories from all over the place, I'm sure.
Yeah. Once I started getting comfortable with myself, and I tell people all the time, don't stay in one place all the time, because the same eyes that see you wrestle time and time again, they're going to get tired of you sooner or later. So I started networking myself to other places, and around that same time when I started out, I started working for former Smoky Mountain champion Bobby Blaze over in Ashland, Kentucky. From there, I met the Batten twins, and I also met Handsome Bo James from Tennessee. And I just was learning from those veterans and all that. As far as my favorite memories go, my gosh, it's like, where do I start? I could write a book. I really can, because and it doesn't matter, when you're wrestling somebody, if they're good or bad, especially when you're on road trips, because you make so many memories and you meet so many. I think it's more about the people I've met, more so than really anything that's ever happened in the ring. Because, I really can't pinpoint a certain thing that might happen in the ring. I mean, there's certain matches that like, wow, that was really, really good. And, there's also matches that you have that's really, really not so good. But I guess probably my favorite match, if you had to ask me to put a gun to my head, my favorite match of all time was in Inez, Kentucky. And for some reason, and I still haven't figured out why, every time I go to Inez, they treat me like I'm the next Messiah or something like that. I don't know what it is about Inez, Kentucky, but every time I work there, it's the only time ever where I got to the ring, and right before I was ready to lock up my opponent, the promoter came to ringside and told me and my opponent to change the finish of the match because he wanted me to go over, because my crowd response was so good. I'm like, okay, that's really odd. But as far as INS goes, I went to this show one time for NWA Bluegrass, and I get to the venue, and I'm like, okay, there's only 5 matches on the card, and I look down, I'm like, oh, I'm in the main event. I'm wrestling the champion, and we got to go 30 minutes.
Oh,
I'm like, 30 minutes? Okay, what? Okay, I'm ready. And the guy whose name was Chris King was this guy. It was a fellow's name. I never wrestled him before. So I'm like, okay, we got to go 30 minutes, and I think he's a babyface, and I'm a babyface. And so I was like, well, we're going to see how good you are because you got to do a 30-minute match. Yeah, and I'm one of those guys, too. I hate going on last. I hate main eventing. I'm one of those guys. I like to be on first. I like to be a curtain jerker. I like to be on first because what I like to do is I'm kind of impatient. I don't like to wait. I like to get my match done, over with, and then I like to sit behind a curtain or whatnot, and I like to watch the rest of the show. I'm like a fan. I mean, I'll admit it. I'm a mark. I like to watch wrestling, whether it's good, bad. I just like to see how people respond to different things, and I like to watch people who I've never seen before work. So we're in a main event, and we're going 30 minutes, so I tell Chris, who I've never worked before, I'm like, okay, well, how about this? How about I get the first 10 minutes, you get the next 10 minutes, and then the last 10 minutes we'll do a bunch of false finishes, and you catch a fall on me in the 29-minute mark. And I'll tell you what, we called most of that in the ring, and it was probably my best match I would say I've ever had in my life. And the crowd was with us the entire time. Which is even more great because we were both baby faces too.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's the thing too. I was gonna say 2 baby faces. I mean, I've rarely seen that go over, but wow, that's actually incredible.
Right, and it was like wow. It's like, and the people were coming up to us after the match saying, "Wow, that was incredible," and it just made me proud to know that I can, when I had to, I can go that long. Because, before, I might go 10 minutes tops. I'd never go that, I never wrestled that long of a match before, ever. So it made me feel real proud that I was able to do that. And that's why I always say that's probably my favorite match of all time.
Oh, absolutely. Well, honestly, like I said, if it were me, that would be my favorite match too, because that's something I can't remember who it was I was talking to, but we were talking about, how many matches have you seen that went over really well with just baby faces or just heels for that matter. But it's weird that you mentioned that. But, wow. So I mean that's fantastic. So I guess this next question kind of ties into that because you had a pretty good drive there. You're like, this is the match. If someone put a gun to my head, this would be the match. So
right.
That had a lot of elements. Wrestling has a lot of elements, so what you were doing in that match was definitely unique. But with all that goes into wrestling, what is it that you miss most about wrestling?
Oddly enough, I kind of miss the traveling because I like being on the road. And I know it's funny because my wife hates being on the road, but I like traveling to all the different towns, and I like hanging out with the boys. I miss hanging out with the boys, and I miss just going out there and putting on a good match, and whether they cheer me, boo me, getting that crowd reaction, and the worst thing a wrestler can hear is hear the boring chants, but chants. But I like gosh, if I had to pinpoint it, I would say the boys, and I actually miss being on the road sometimes.
Absolutely. I'm the same way. I'm a huge fan of traveling, and that's probably one of my favorite things about independent wrestling, especially is I get to go and I get to see all these different places, all these different people, and it's just traveling is fantastic as long as you don't mind long car rides.
Right, and I always liked car. I mean, there was a time there for a while there I was going to West Virginia every Friday, and that's I would leave work on a Friday. Probably about 1 o'clock, and I would drive to Charleston, West Virginia every Friday for a good 2 months straight. And that was probably a good, I would say, a 4-hour car ride. And then I would go from there, work there, and then I would drive another 4 hours to, let's say, Tompkinsville, Kentucky. And then on Sunday, I would drive another hour and a half or over 2 hours to a little town called Greensboro, Kentucky, and work there on a Sunday night. For a long time there, I would just make wrestling my entire weekend. I wouldn't even see my own bed.
That's when you know you're doing it right.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, and you're all expected to live in Indiana. I spent a lot of time in Indiana. For a while there, I mean, my gosh, I think I was booked in Indiana for a promotion in Indiana like every single weekend. It seemed like for a while there.
And then this is kind of odd, but you mentioned being booked in Indiana. I remember years ago, I mean years ago, I'm for the fans out there, I am 22, turning 23 this year. I think when I was like 8 or 9, and I don't mean to age you, but when I was like 8 or 9, maybe 10 years old, I think, maybe a little bit older, I remember seeing you wrestle at HPW. That was a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
I don't mean to age you or myself in that matter.
Well, I don't know. No, I just turned 40 years old last month. So I really don't consider 40 all that old. But
No.
like I said, I've been wrestling. I started out wrestling when I was 18. And when I wrestled HPW, if I had to guess, I started HPW probably around 2002. Yeah, about 2001, 2002. And I wrestled there like every month till about, 2007 maybe. If I had to guess. Yeah, I had a good little 4 or 5 year run there. And it was always one of my favorite places to work. And as a matter of fact, Jerry Wilson, who's the promoter, he actually let me put together a couple of shows back in the day, too, which was always something I've always wanted to do. But I always had a good time there in HPW. And one thing I gotta say about Jerry is he's always willing to give young wrestlers a chance and a platform and the freedom to to grow and work on things they need to work on. And funny, Jerry Wilson's story, you can beat him up with anything you want to, but by golly, he might be bleeding buckets, but he is going to be out there for that raffle to draw the winning ticket for that raffle. I miss Jerry a lot. I miss the HPW shows.
Yeah, he was a character. I mean, I remember when I was younger, he was something. I mean, even when you're a kid, you kind of have that sense of like wonderment, and you remember things a little more exasperated than they really were. And he was one of those people that seemed a little larger than life. And I'm like, when I think about it, he was as a guy, but he just had that personality,
Yeah, he has that personality. He's got that charisma, and I'll tell you what, he's I guess they're still around, from my understanding, which is amazing because independent promotions nowadays, they don't really last all that long. And that's a testament to him that HPW's been around as long as they have. He knows that.
Absolutely. Well, and I guess another note about HPW, and this is a question from Dave Dynasty himself, folks. He wanted to know if you remembered any matches you ever had with him, or being in the ring with him at all. He's one of those curious fellows, I suppose.
Well, I can't pinpoint one match, but I do know this. I remember Dave Dynasty. He's doing kind of like a stockbroker gimmick, and he is the one who introduced his little brother Donnie, who became Donnie Idol, and then we all started feuding against one another. And I think I remember more wrestling Donnie than I do Dave. I might have been in the ring with Dave once or twice, but I remember more being in the ring with Donnie. But yeah, Davis. I like Dave. I liked his stockbroker thing he had going on there. But does he wrestle anymore, or
no? He
just do the podcast.
Yeah, he does the podcast. He also does like occasional like ring announcing stuff like that. He's
okay.
He doesn't really do the thing. I can't remember. I think he stopped wrestling like 2000 something. I can't remember now. He's told me before. But yeah, no, he doesn't do the wrestling thing anymore. But I was actually gonna say, I think one of the matches I was remembering from seeing you was with Donnie Idol. Funny enough, so that's how I remembered it. But yeah, he was like, yeah, ask him if he remembers me. I'm like, I'm sure he does.
Oh, I remember Dave. Yeah, I remember Dave. I remember a lot of guys there. I remember, like I said, I remember Ox Harley and Louis Lovins. I'd actually spent a night at Scotty Lovins' house a couple of times when I had other shows in Indiana to do. He was gracious enough to let me stay a night in his place. Of course, I know Jerry, and there's a ton of guys that went through that area in HPW.
Actually, it's funny.
But yeah,
or go ahead.
No, you go right ahead.
No, I was gonna say, funny you mentioned Alex Harlow. That's someone else we actually talked to not too long ago. But he was another guy that I remember back from the HPW days. I remember a lot of people back from, surprisingly. I have a horrible memory. But anyways, so, I mean, there's a lot of, great things about wrestling. We've talked a lot about that. But something I like to ask people, especially someone who can kind of look back at independent wrestling kind of in hindsight, because you know what they say, hindsight's 20/20. You can look back at your career, you can look back all the people you wrestled. But what do you think the best and the worst part of independent wrestling is?
I think the best part of independent wrestling is, like I've mentioned before, the people you meet stay with you forever. I've got stories galore about the people I've met because they come from all walks of life.
Oh yeah.
You got your people who got a lot of money, you got your people who don't have a lot of money, all different backgrounds. The wrestling brings so many people together that you would not normally hang out with on a normal day-to-day basis, but wrestling is the one thing that brings people together, and I think that's the best part about wrestling. You can load about, 2, 3, 4 guys up in a car, drive 3 hours to a show, get done with the show, have your matches, drive on back with your, late night McDonald's or whatever you may have, and, and I think it's the bond between the boys that makes independent wrestling so great. Probably the worst part about it would probably have to be going to a show and you're promised to get paid one thing. Oh, we don't have enough money today to pay you. Maybe we'll get you next time. That's probably the worst part. It never really happened to me too often because everywhere I went to, everyone, I can't really think of, I could probably count on people on one hand who's ever really not taken care of me as far as paying me to do a wrestling show. I've been very fortunate in that aspect, but I'd have to say that would be the worst.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and that's actually something I hear a lot, and it's unfortunate, but I think when you look at it at the perspective of, this is the independent wrestling scene, it is independent wrestling for a reason, whether that reason be a good thing or a bad thing.
And that's why you'll never see me become a promoter, because I like to keep my money, and I would hate, I've heard horror stories from other promoters before about losing money, and it happens too. You never know. You might be running a show on the same day they have the big football game in town, or weather might play a factor in it. There's all kinds of different variables that could happen where you don't draw as much as you thought you would, or you're not going to draw as much as you did the month before. Things like that do happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny, Dave, he's tried his hand at promoting for, and he's done pretty well, but that's what he says too. He's like, that's the one bad thing about doing promotion is that, you kind of roll the dice every time you have a show.
Mm-hmm.
You roll the dice just a little bit.
You do, and it's a gamble. It really is. And my hat's off to somebody like Roger Ruffin, who's been doing, and Jerry Wilson, who's been doing it as long as they have and are still around. So they must be doing something right to still be around.
They're making money somehow.
Yep.
Well, I guess kind of maybe a fast forward. We've talked a lot about how you started wrestling. Some of your memories from the time, but what are you up to currently? What is Tim up to now?
Well, I stopped wrestling I would say all the time. I've always been a weekend warrior, but I stopped wrestling regularly probably around 2011, and it all stemmed from, I wanted to do something different, and I found out about a bodybuilding competition. I've always kind of wanted to do that. I always kicked around that idea. And I thought, and I noticed, there's a local show that's coming up in October. So I trained really, really hard, and I competed in this bodybuilding competition in Cincinnati, and I ended up doing better than I thought I would. I got fourth in the novice, and I got 5th in the open lightweight, which is pretty good for a guy's first show. I'm like, man, this is pretty fun, and it's competitive, and I might look into this all the time, and and I was getting older, and I started having more kids, so being a home warrior and all that. I started competing in bodybuilding competitions, and then occasionally Roger asked me to do a show for him every now and then, and I would do that. But now I've got real young kids at home, and I'm a vending manager at my job of enterprise vending, and I do compete in bodybuilding competitions still, even at my age. I plan on doing a couple more shows in the fall. Hopefully that still works out. But basically that's what I've been doing. I've been competing in bodybuilding competitions, still trying to stay in a decent amount of shape for some of my age. And basically I'm a full-time dad and a full-time husband.
No, absolutely. So it sounds like you're still living the dream there, right? You're still getting to do what you love, and that's what matters, right?
Yes. And I'm not closing the door on wrestling completely, because I do believe wrestlers never retire. I believe there's always going to be an opportunity. I'm sure someone at some point down the line is going to ask me to do a show for them, and I'll probably say yes. And I'm sure I've got a few more matches left under my belt. I've been very, very fortunate, very lucky, because there's a lot of guys who have wrestling as long as I have who are all banged up, and luckily for me, I'm not one of those guys. I've actually taken very good care of myself throughout my career. I've got no nagging injuries. I don't limp out of bed, and my back doesn't hurt, and I've been very fortunate in that aspect. So if I had to go today, I think I could still keep up with anybody.
That's what we like to hear. Get to see Tim sometime again. Tim Maricelli or Charlie. We'd see you again sometime, hopefully. But in the meantime, then, between now and the next time you get back up there and we see you do something else, is there any way for people to follow you? Do you have like a social media for your bodybuilding, or do you have a social media just for yourself that you can share?
It's very funny, because I'm not a Facebook person, and I'm not a MySpace. I guess MySpace isn't around anymore, is it? I don't have the MySpace. I don't have the FaceSpace or Facebook or none of that. That stuff's never. And you know what? It's funny, because not to go on a little tangent here, but like back in my day when I hate to say it, back in my day when I was wrestling, I would spend countless hours and money putting VH1 tapes together, my matches, and putting them in packages, and spending postal money, sending them out to all these promoters. I'd spend all kinds of time, money, resources, whatnot, to send my tapes of my work to these promoters, hopefully to get booked. And nowadays, all you got to do is send them a link to your Facebook page, and it has a few matches on it. That's all you got to do nowadays. Why wasn't that around when I wrestled? I would have saved a whole lot of money and time.
That is true. I didn't think about that aspect of the technology progression. And I forgot that was something people did. They had to get videos of themselves and mail it to people for them to see them. I
spent all kinds of money and time putting these tapes together and sending them out to all kinds of, it was like, I don't know, $2 or $3 a videotape to send to promoters or around the country and all that. And now all you have to do is send a link to your Facebook page, and there you go. You can watch it instantly. It's like, wow, I could have saved a whole lot of time and trouble, but I guess that's technology for you these days. But as far as getting a hold of me, I do have an email address at least. That's Tim Hall, TIMHALL 55 at yahoo.com.
Absolutely. Well, if you guys want to get a hold of him, you know how to get a hold of him. I would say hit him up, but be respectful. It's the man's email, so don't blow him up.
They want to blow me up, go right ahead.
Nope.
There's a delete button for a reason. No, I'm kidding.
That's true, though. So, hey, you guys have free reign now, so go for it. I'm kidding. But Tim, thank you so much for coming on here, chit-chatting with me, telling us all these stories. It's definitely been an honor and pleasure, especially for someone who I saw when I was little. It's definitely weird in retrospect, because I was like, man, I know this name from somewhere. And I'm like, yep, I remember watching him at HBW. So it's a little bit of a. I'm like, wow, I'm getting old. I'm kidding. But thanks so much for coming out here talking to me today, Tim. It's been an honor and it's been a pleasure. But again, you guys, you know where to find them.
Hey, thanks for having me on too. And I guess it's always good to be remembered by at least somebody.
You've heard him here on the Dave Dynasty Show as a guest and as host of the monthly Grams Gallery episodes. And now you can hear his stories. You can own a copy of Confessions of a Big Time Wrestler, the audio book from Dr. Jerry Graham Jr., former multi-tag team champion in WWA and owner of Bruiser Bedlam. You can hear all of his encounters with the various wrestlers, places, and promotions he's worked as he tells about his colorful, long, and illustrious career. You can have your own copy for only $25, and that includes shipping and handling. It's very simple. Go on Facebook, look up Jerry Jaffe, Jaffe, send him a private message, and make arrangements to purchase a copy of Confessions of a Big Time Wrestler now. You will not regret this purchase. And welcome back to the Dave Dynasty Show. I am Dave Dynasty. Woo, we're pulling another episode to close. Thank you to referee Manbun for his segment. Thank you to Magnum CK for appearing today. Thanks to the half pint beast, the little twit Ike Isaacs, for conducting those interviews. Thank you to Tiny Tim Lucarelli for taking time out of his schedule to getting us up to date on what he's up to. We got lots of great interviews lined up for you in the next few weeks. A couple of them are, they're great every week, right? These guys are all great, but we have a couple that are big. And I'm talking, I'm talking if you are in to the history side of the Midwest pro wrestling that we cover, there's three names, just bam, that are going to be coming out that are going to be spectacular. And I mean, these are huge, right? These are huge if you're a Midwest pro wrestling historian, such as I, and a fan of the past, a fan of the history. These three guys, it's amazing. You're going to love them. We're going to get those knocked out soon. Got a couple other, interviews lined up with some current talent that are going to be spectacular as well. And of course, I am in the process. We're going to sit down again with Dr. Jerry Graham Jr. and knock out another episode of Graham's Gallery. And we want to hear from you as far as that is concerned. In the next episode of Graham's Gallery, we're going to talk to the doctor about the Great Wojo. That's what everybody wants to hear. Everybody wants to hear about the Great Wojo. Where did he come from? What's his background? What's his career like? What's like working with him? What's it like traveling with him? What's he like in general, right? Everybody wants to know about the Great Wojo, and we're going to talk to the man that knows him best, and that is Dr. Jerry Graham Jr. That's on the next Graham's Gallery. So if you have a question, if you have something you want to know about the Great Wojo, get at us, right? On all those forms of social media, Facebook, Twitter, et cetera. You can either hit up the Dave Dynasty Show with those or the Graham's Gallery accounts. Graham's Gallery is on Facebook. It is on Twitter as well. Hit us up there. Let us know what you want to know about the Great Wojo, and we just might ask the good doctor your question on the next episode of Graham's Gallery. And also in the near future, I'm going to sit down with Chris Parsons, probably one of, if not the guy, as far as Midwest pro wrestling historian and WWA historian. And we're going to talk about WWA in the 70s. The first part of that, as you know, sat down with Richard Vicek a while back, did the one about from, 64 to 69. And then me and Chris are going to sit down and talk about the beginning of the 70s. The first half of the 70s, actually not even the first half. We're just going to talk about the first few years because the 70s are so jam-packed. That's the prime time for the WWA. And, so we're going to sit down with Chris and we're going to talk about those years. That will be a great episode. So you do not want to miss all the happenings coming on the Dave Dynasty Show. We're going to have not necessarily Midwest related, but watch all of our social medias this coming weekend, the March 23rd weekend, because you know what? I'm taking a little mini vacation, just a little weekend trip, and I'm heading to Memphis, Tennessee. So watch it there. I'm trying to visit the Mid-South Coliseum, and see it. So watch. I'm going to post some pictures, some video, etc. on all the social media accounts. I'm going to hit up Jerry Lawler's restaurant, and his bar on Bill Street. And, who knows what else? No wrestling on the agenda. Got lots of other things, that we're going to do. I love going to Memphis. Love doing all this stuff. So we're going to hit it all up, but I am, going to look at a little bit of a wrestling stuff while I'm there. So follow the accounts and partake with us. But until then, thank you for joining us again. Thank you for everybody involved. Thank you for being a part of the Midwest Express and supporting Midwest Pro Wrestling, past and present, and the world's most dangerous podcast that is bringing you all that Midwest Pro Wrestling every week, the Dave Dynasty Show. And until next time, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.